It's the end of work as you know it. Welcome to WorkEND, a Neurodiversity Podcast, a monthly panel discussion exploring the innovative world of neurodivergent individuals redefining work. Join us as we share unique perspectives, experiences, and ideas. Brought to you by Umbrella US and hosted by the fabulous Salena Gavin. This platform features candid conversations with neurodivergent self-advocates and allied community members. Gain firsthand insights into their journeys and discover how ND traits have become powerful assets while challenges continue to be present. Whether you're seeking belonging, inspiration, and new understanding, or aiming to create a more inclusive workspace, WorkEND, a Neurodiversity podcast, offers knowledge, personal stories, and actionable insights. Subscribe today to reshape your perception of work and expend energy in a brand new way. It's the end of...
Hi, everyone. It is your host of the dynamic podcast, The WorkEND, Salena Gavin. I must apologize ahead of time if I lose power because of the weather situation here in Erie, PA. I'd first like to introduce myself and describe myself. I am an African American female with very curly blonde hair. I am in my office at a community center, so if you hear children in the background, that is why. And I am in front of a fake brick blue backdrop. All right. I want you all to know that here we embrace differences, opinions. We want to talk about it all here. We want everyone to feel comfortable here and everyone to feel respected here. So you can put your comments in the comment section, but check yourself, okay? Before you wreck yourself. No, I'm kidding. But that was an old rap song. But just check yourself. Don't, if you're going to put anything offensive or just negative. We want to stay positive here. Today, we have, you know what? I just have to say, today is an all Black affair. Okay. And I say that to you because all three of my panelists, Roberta Black, Candice Jurek, and Barbara Saunders, and including myself, are of African American descent. It's okay to call me Black too. I said that a while ago. So yes, I'm so excited. So let's get started. I am going to first start with Roberta. Could you please give us a visual description of yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you, Salena. Well, hi, everyone. I am a woman of Cherokee and Black origin with straight black hair and tortoiseshell glasses. I'm clinically diagnosed with ASD and CPTSD. I'm also a proud member of the LGBTQ community, and behind me is a wheat wall and blue curtains. I am certified as an accounting clerk with several years of supervisory experience in administration. I did an apprenticeship in HR at Boeing and have used these skills numerous times during my admin career, as well as my accounting skills during my time in administration. I have been in action, creating change for most of my life, starting in grade school. I am trained in being an agent of change by the National Conference for Community and Justice here in St. Louis, situational leadership, and state civil rights for supervisors by the state of Missouri. While in that position, I became trained in the heart of coaching to better help those I supervise to strive and thrive to be the best they can.
Thank you so much, Roberta. And again, to our audience, do you see what I'm talking about? Do you see what I'm talking about? We are coming to the table with so many different expertise and experiences. I just invite you to listen and comment as often as you can. So next, I'm going to have Candice give us a visual description and a short bio.
Yes, hi,
Thank you.
I am Candice Jurek. Hi, I'm so glad to be here. I am based in West Lafayette, Indiana, home of Purdue, and I am a brown skinned African American female, and I have my hair in I don't know if this qualifies as an Afro puff, but that was what I was going for. Okay, cool. And I have curly brown hair. I typically wear glasses, but I'm not today. And I have on a white shirt with a black turtleneck and iPod earphones. Oh, and as far as my career goes, I actually am currently unemployed, but I'm working on a project in an accelerator called Builders and Backers for EV infrastructure. And I like to consider myself an advocate in the neurodiverse community. I am also late diagnosed, and they don't want to give me the ASD moniker. They call me anxious, anxiety. I have anxiety and depression with autistic traits, and PTSD. That's what they have tried to give me, but my tests were inconclusive, and I had to take another one. So that's why I'm here, because I want to advocate for us and just kind of better prepare people on what to expect to their path to diagnosis.
Yes, thank you so much, Candice. And last but not least, we are going to ask Barbara to describe herself and give us a short little bio.
Hello, I am Barbara Saunders. I am a Black woman also with dreadlocks, a little gray patch in the front of my hair, and I'm wearing horn-rimmed glasses, a leopard print shirt, and behind me is the leg portion of a great blue heron on a poster. And I'm a writer. I've lived in California for most of my adult life. And so I have done a lot of work with a lot of technology companies. That's pretty much an accidental choice. And I do not have any formal diagnosis. I was not aware that I had an unusual brain until pretty recently in life. Just always thought I was unconventional and different.
Well, thank you for that. And I want to let you know, don't feel alone. Okay. First, I want to point out something Candice said. You said that you're unemployed. Well, you know what? The work constitutes everything, paid or unpaid, volunteering, you name it. That is work. Anytime you are exerting that energy towards something, that's work. So, and another thing I wanted to point out, Barbara. Now, where did you say you reside at?
I'm originally from New York, and I live in Berkeley, California. Oops. Oh, no. Looks like Salena is.
I'm back.
You're back.
Okay. Okay. Because that just happened and I have no clue what I was going to say. That's that neurodivergence that went away when the black screen came. So what we're going to do is we're going to get started, okay, with the questions. Each question is given, well, the whole entire segment is 50 minutes, and I give 5 minutes per question per individual. A lot of times people, when we're talking about things we're so passionate about, we tend to talk a lot. I will let you know when you've reached, when you have like 1 minute left. I'll just stick up a finger or just give you like a, whatever. So with all that said, I would like to get started. I am going to begin with Candice. You're my first question. You're on the spot. Okay. I want you to talk about your work identity and your personal identity. Are they the same? Are they different? And if they differ, how do they overlap?
Oh, that's really good. So my work identity is really kind of interesting. I started my career, or really kind of came into my career in higher education recruitment in the for-profit and education management space. And that was the way that I put myself through college, between University of Phoenix and Walden University. And then I went to this fabulous company, which is probably still my favorite job that I ever had, called 2U. And they were growing out of being a startup, but they still had like that kind of startup-y culture. And, we were drinking at work and playing video games and like all that stuff you hear at startups.
I like that.
Right? Love it. Love it. Love it. But it was really fun. And, what I realized is I never really wanted to go back to traditional corporate ever again after I had that role. That role in startup culture really kind of exposed me to a different type of existence as an employee and what kind of expectations that I wanted to have from my employer. You can have fun at work. You can drink responsibly at work. You can play at work, and you can still kind of be successful and attain goals. And I think for me, the biggest part of that shift in my career is going into startup is that I really found kind of this alternative career path that I think a lot of Black people don't get exposed to, right? Like
Exactly.
that part, you know what I mean? And from there, I went to work for a smaller startup, and I started kind of planning my strange kind of career trajectory as this kind of, it's weird, but this kind of like alternate MBA path. So I said, I could really see myself being a founder, contributing more to society, but I want to learn from founders. I want to experience that small growth and really get in on the ground floor. So I was working for very small companies, trying to be one of the first, 1 through 10 employees. And that's kind of where I've kind of been, just kind of trying to get to IPO and startup since I was 34, and I'm now 42. And, I've done some software sales, ed tech sales, and now I'm working on an infrastructure project. And my personal identity is very tied in closely with my job. I think that it's hard for me to disconnect them, just because working in startup has been this really weird personal journey for me. My parents are from Compton, y'all. Compton, California.
Compton.
Right. I didn't grow up there, but my family is from Compton. They're from LA. And that was what I was exposed to, like I never saw myself at Google or AOL or, interacting with these types of people. Right. And not that I've worked for those companies, but I've worked on the AOL campus. And I just started to see myself in a different way. And I started to pursue different interests. And it really changed my life. It really changed my life. And just having the exposure and the access to different types of people, different hobbies even. I started like rowing on the Anacostia. That's a whole nother story. Fell in the water and then I quit.
What else is in Anacostia River? No, go
right. That's why I said whole other story. Fell in the water and then I quit because of that. You're absolutely right.
Oh,
and so that is really kind of how I see myself. I think that when I look in the mirror and when I wake up every day, I see myself as someone that is committed to change in society. I'm committed to humanity, And I'm committed to really changing the way that we live in any way that I can, because I think that we all can have a better collective, more thoughtful and more conscious experience.
Oh my gosh, it was the perfect way to end that. And the way you talk about the alternative career path, it's almost like you were like reborn. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, like I can be me in my workspace. I'm a very funny person. I love to laugh. I often am very loud. So you can only imagine what my work career path did to me. What they did was they muted me. So I stopped having a voice altogether because I was like, no, I don't want them to think I'm this. I don't want them to think I'm that. So I let my workplace just destroy my identity completely. And it took me a while to like build that back up and work back into that and find myself. Like you're saying, Candace, like I felt like I was kind of rebirthed. Like, you know what? I don't have to do this. I can do this. And it's okay. It's okay.
100%. I think that the great thing is we don't have to be this or that. We can be this and that, if that makes sense, you know? And that's how we have to see ourselves.
I'm just going to write that down right quick. Very nice. Barbara, we're coming to you. I need to know about that identity.
Okay, I'll start with my personal identity. I have a really hard time with the concept of identity, like what unifies me into one thing. If forced, I will lead with the fact that I'm a deadhead. That's what I did that was what guided me for like most of my life. I followed the dead and I followed the Grateful Dead.
Okay.
That's how I chose my college, and that's how I chose what to do after college. And I spent, it's only 10 years now, but that kind of really shapes me. And I think I lead with it because it's one of the few things that really encapsulates what I love, what I care about, and who my peeps are, and also a little bit of my history and my generation, and it places me in time and space. So I kind of lead with that. I'm Generation X, and I came of age in a different kind of era where work was different. My parents were New York educators, so they were exposed to people of, all walks of life and all careers in this huge landscape. So I never felt like you have to be a doctor, or you're going to be a truck driver, or you're going to work in a corporation. And I had to write some notes. The way I conceived of work always was that, okay, there's how you're going to contribute to the world, how you're going to make money, how you want to live, and the stewardship of your own gifts. And that those are the four things that are important in how you're out in the world, and they don't all have to go together in one place or one career. So that was always, I felt like, well, what kind of job or career can I have that will allow all of those things to happen, even if they don't happen on the job? What's really important to me in a job is to be part of a community. I realize I like places and situations where I can make a natural relationship with people and be part of a community. And I've found that in really diverse places. I've found that being a waitress. I've found that being a substance abuse counselor. I've found that being a person. I'm doing coaching for people who write books, and I love great ideas. So I've done that. And then I've found that in certain companies where I didn't expect it, big evil corporations. I would say that the way I really think about this is the only thing I feel like is truly my duty or responsibility on the planet is to take care of animals. That's it. And I know that that's known as an autistic trait.
I love it. I love animals.
I think that's kind of why I hold career lightly in a way, because I feel like that's not my responsibility. That's not why I'm here. Why I'm here is to take care of animals, even if it's only one at a time. writing is something that I just do naturally and habitually. It's a talent, but it's also just a habit and something I like to do. And then I have most easily monetized that. So I've monetized that at Apple, and I've monetized that at nonprofits, and I've monetized that selling my own stuff. So that's writing is it. And I think aside from writing, it's just language in general, because the things that I've done outside of writing have been language and concept related, including coaching and teaching writing. I was a personal fitness trainer for a while, and I was a substance abuse counselor for a while. And so all of those things are language related.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Barbara. It's funny when you say the stewardship of your own gifts. I like that. Take ownership and be proud, and don't be afraid to show the world who you are. I was just thinking when you said that, when you said you were a deadhead, I was thinking, like, I live in a small community and I work with children from K to 12th grade. So there is not a place where I can hide or be unseen where I don't hear that Miss Gavin, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I buying here? I'm looking at what I have in the counter, like, stay back there. But I mean, you cannot see this. But once again, I never like imagined that to be part of my identity, but that really is. And that's where that overlapping starts. And I have a difficult time with the overlapping. So I'm hearing you, like, you've done all these wonderful things, and you've reborn yourself, and now you're doing all these wonderful things and showing your talents. And now we're going to go to Roberta. Roberta, can you tell us about your work identity and the whole nine?
Well, after Barbara, I feel like I'm like chopped liver here.
Oh,
because you
right?
just impressed me.
Right.
Barbara, you and I both share a love of music and of writing. Maybe one day somebody will pay me for my writing. But when it comes to my identity, basically I've learned over the years to keep the two separate. My work identity is one thing, and my personal identity or IDs are quite different. Something that I just learned to keep separate because, as I mentioned, I'm LGBTQ, and there's still a lot of closed-minded people around that. Right. And when it comes to autism spectrum disorder, still a lot of very closed-minded people. Probably the best job I ever had was when I was working at a program for children who were both autistic and some who had just emotional issues. Interesting thing about the whole thing is that I worked with this guy for, he was one of my old bosses, and we worked together for about 5 or 6 years. And this was before I officially got a late in life diagnosis. And he was a former United States Air Force captain. And he had mentored kids when he was in the military. And he became a licensed professional counselor. And he always loved me for my intelligence and my ability to help him maintain order, like with military discipline, Even our chaplain praised me for helping the staff with issues when he was unavailable, something that they claim, people with ASD can't do, that we can't relate to other people. But I seem to be able to do this because I'm getting praise for it, And when I told my former boss about having ASD, he was shocked by the news. He was our department director, and my office was like his outer office. And yet he had no clue that I had ASD or CPTSD. So when I told him like a year and a half, 2 years ago, he was completely surprised by the whole thing. And he kind of did something that maybe he shouldn't have done, which was he mentioned that I don't display any of the typical traits and signs.
And what are those, sir? No. Enlighten me.
And like I said, we were working with children who were neurodiverse and emotionally disturbed. So, he had to know something.
Exactly, right.
to be able to do that and have his LPC, but it just kind of went over his head. And the weirdest part about this job was that during his first couple of weeks, he was going to fire me because he was the type of guy who liked to have people in place that, right there next to him that he knew was loyal to him. But he heard about what I had done during my first 2 weeks on the job, which was I created a presentation for the board of directors to be delivered by the interim director. And when she got done presenting that presentation, she came back to my office beaming and said, "Roberta, they loved it. They loved it. Said they'd never seen anything like it before." I said, "I hope you took the credit for it." And she said, "Nope, I told them it was you." I never felt so honored in my life. And much like Barbara, I did take some exploration into the world of IT, but I didn't finish my studies because I needed accommodations. I also have dyscalculia. Some people pronounce it dyscalculia.
Welcome to my world. Definitely.
And the thing is, I'm not bad at math. I just need a little more time. I went as far as college algebra, trigonometry, probability and statistics, and calculus. And I had the same
all the odds, girl.
And it wasn't until calculus that I had a teacher. He was a ex-Marine, and he noticed how my homework was quite different from from my test, which I had a lot of shorter time to do those tests. And so one day he told me, "You're staying after class." And so he watched me do the work. And then when it was all said and done, he looked at me and said, "Why are you doing it this way?" I said, "It's because it's the only way I know how to do it." And then he said, "I taught you all how to do that one time at the beginning of each section. I've taught y'all how they did it in the old days," which is apparently what I was doing. He said, "Then I showed you all how we derived this formula that we're all supposed to use today to make this easier." He said, "Why can't you do it with the formula?" My response was, "I don't know." Because I went to high school in 1983 to 87, since I've already given away I'm Gen X. And I was in the very first class to desegregate my high school. So it was a bit of a different kind of an environment for me. And I was really surprised by this man who took so much interest in me because he kind of fit a stereotype. He was a good old boy from Alabama who, if I dated one of his children, he probably would have wanted to kill me. But as a teacher, he always tried to make sure I understood the lesson. And if we had known about dyscalculia back then, and I had been diagnosed with ASD back then, which a lot of young women weren't, particularly in the 80s. It wasn't until much later, like around 2000, they even thought about the fact that girls have ASD. And so I did my best, and I just made it through enough. But yeah, I have good math skills. Another one of the things I've done that beats the odds is that by the time I was 7 years old, I was already scoring in the language arts area on the college level. So, I mean, people think that we're all just not able to do things, but we are. But the most rewarding work I have done is like the non-for-profit stuff, particularly when I was doing it as a volunteer, because there's no money in it. It's me doing it simply because I give a damn. And I love trying to help people, particularly young people. So I would love to be able to say that I have a job right now that's dedicated to working with young people, but I am also unemployed.
Okay, this is my thing. Like, not being able, people believing that we're not capable of doing things, and this is probably for all of you, like, okay, we have our different exceptionalities, but on top of the fact we're African American. So do you think that compiles the fact that people think that we're not able does it make it worse? Does it make it like double trouble? Or is it just something that we have to accept and fight through that other people don't realize? Anybody can have this one.
Well, I'll just start with my own experience.
Okay.
I went to a very much predominantly white prep school kind of situation. And
Same here.
but for me, it was liberating because I think I was like very much welcomed and accepted, but also allowed to be different. And I think that in some ways, people could write off a way that I was not non-conforming or different. And therefore, nobody tried to force me to conform. And so I felt very freed by being able to just, well, I'm different. And so if, oh, maybe she's different because she's Black, maybe she's different because she's smart, maybe she's different because, so I don't think that it ever even occurred to me that being different in any way would cause an inability to fit in until I got to the corporate world. And in the corporate world, I felt more,
don't they?
yeah. And in the corporate world, because I've never been that conventional or ambitious, I have tended to feel much more of the pressure on the neurodivergence than I have in terms of race, because it's never been like I want a promotion and someone's not giving it to me. It's I can't sit down for 12 hours a day. And so it's the neurodivergence part that's been more present for me.
Of a problem. Okay.
I find it interesting that you and I both went to prep schools. Only in my case, I had to desegregate it to get in there. And I was like first on the ground because I was in band camp. I like to play music. Haven't done it in 25 years, but I used to love to play music. And I'll never forget 2 weeks in to band camp, the director ordered us to close ranks, and my arm touched the white boy's arm. He literally shoved me so hard that I fell into other people, and they reacted as if I was doing it on purpose. And then the band director literally looked at me and said, "What's your problem?" Well, when he could hear the guy call me and part me for this word, "Don't you touch me, you dirty nigger." And that was the environment I was in high school, because, like I said, we desegregated that place. And so a lot of I'm from St. Louis. St. Louis County is where I grew up.
Yeah, I was in New York, and I think New York is a little different.
Well, Missouri is the only state above the 3630 parallel that is actually a slave state. And so everyone here thinks like the Southern world does, that Black people are not capable, we're all lazy. That sort of stereotype is very common. I must admit, among the younger generations, the woke generations, that's not quite the same. Like, for example, my freshman year, my history teacher literally said to us, "Give me a few minutes before we start this unit," because I had never had to teach it before. And when she started teaching it, it was a unit on slavery. So these kids had never, before high school, had learned anything about slavery. And I guess they thought it was a myth, because that's what I guess their families may have led them to believe. But I'll never forget this one kid. I can't forget his name. All of us Black kids, when this started, we were looking at each other like, "What the?" But when class was over, he literally got up and came to me, someone he barely knows, and just put his hand out to shake mine. And I wasn't sure what to do at that moment, but I went ahead and took his hand. And then he literally gave me an apology for what white people did to Black people, which I didn't know what to do with that either. So what I did was I explained to him that you don't owe me an apology. That was somebody else who did that. It's how you live your life right now that matters.
Yep. Thank you so much for that. It's about right now. I was talking to my kids today, and we're talking about Dr. Martin Luther King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. we're talking about him. We're going into Black History Month, even though I think all 12 months are Black History Month for me. It's emphasized in the month of February. I was talking to them about, some sit-ins and some protests and what they were and how they went about those things. And they were very shocked at what African Americans allowed to be done to them in these boycotts and in these protests. Even though they understood why, they understood that it was, violence begets violence, they understood it, but they still didn't understand why. And I think that relates, I know, to many of us in our work environment. It's like, I don't know, can let's move to the next question before I get all jumbled in my okay.
Well,
You know what?
can
I
I
did
say
want to
one thing
just
on
say,
that?
Okay,
look, I was like, I wanted to say one thing too.
because I had it's right there, and well, Candace.
Look,
Well,
I feel like we're at a critical time in America. And, like I am originally from California. I just moved to Indiana from Maryland in June. And, the thing that I think, and all of my grandparents are all from Louisiana. Okay. And so when we talk about, critical race theory, and when we're talking about, politics and, Nikki Haley, and, when we're talking about these things, okay. Right. The thing that I have to center myself with is my grandma picked cotton as a child, as her first job. And, her father was one of the first Black people in their town to try to go vote. And when he went to try to vote in Alexandria or Shreveport, Louisiana, they asked him if he had his voting tax, and they turned him away. And, I have been very privileged in my life. I grew up in Maryland in a place called Columbia, which is a planned community. And, everyone practices their faith in the same building, and it's kind of like this weird little utopia. But the thing that I really try to bring myself back to is that Tuskegee wasn't very long ago. My grandma picked cotton with her hands as a child, less than 100 years ago. And, the things that we go through and that we're experiencing now, and the things that I try to tell people is that, the plight of Black people and, neurodivergent Black people is kind of a new conversation in a old context, right? Like, people want to group all of these things together, but we have to separate them and say, it wasn't that long ago. Everyone that is from different parts of the country has a different experience, right? Because Barbara, you are not the first person to tell me that, coming from New York, that they had a different experience with racism. Not to say that it didn't happen, but it just happened very differently there, And I think that the reason why I kind of started to advocate for myself in the neurodiverse space is because I navigated my whole entire life with just a simmer of weirdness, right? In the back of my mind, I was just weird and I couldn't understand why. And I would say to my parents, something is wrong and I don't know what it is, right? And I just kept saying that, but I was saying it in a context that I didn't understand. And at 40, 40 years old, one of my friends that is an Aspie said, I think you're on the spectrum. And I have fought like hell ever since then to get to diagnosis. And that is the thing of, you know, the intersectionality of race and politics and socioeconomics that we don't talk about enough as Black people in the workforce, as Black people that are neurodivergent, trying to maintain their financial freedom and independence, and as Black people that are neurodivergent, that are trying to have, you know, romantic relationships. Like, it's kind of weird because like no one really tells you how to do that, right? And so I just think that, you know, I'm constantly reframing, and I don't know if you guys are doing that also, but that's what I have to do for myself, especially living in Indiana now. You know, I mean, Confederate flags fly here. So.
Wow. I everything you said was amazing. I don't want to take anything from that, but I do want to elaborate, or I do want, our last question talks about what you were just talking about the policymakers and the advocates. And the question is asking, like, how do we advocate and ensure that the unique needs of neurodivergent individuals from marginalized communities are addressed in employment, community engagement policies and initiatives? So once again, you saying that you have to tackle each thing separately, Candace, right? So like, but are we able to do that in the workplace? Are African Americans given the ability to address each situation separately in the workforce?
I have this idea. It's very universal problem, I think, that and it centers around this idea of psychological safety, and that for many people of all backgrounds who have suffered from trauma or have different experiences or uncertainties in life, that psychological safety, the way that they seek that is predictability. And that ends up coming, I want to be around people like me. I want to be in a place that has these certain rules. I want to be able to play these certain rules and these certain games and be rewarded for it. And so psychological safety has to do with, I'm going to enforce this kind of conformity and I'm going to enforce it on myself, and then maybe I'll be able to survive. Where true psychological safety has to allow for people to be themselves because if you can't be yourself, then you're constantly having to sort of police who you are and what you say to this person and that person, and there's no naturalness to it, then you're always in a minefield. And there's this tension between that of people who are trying to survive by holding on to these rules, and other people who are trying to survive going, I can't play by these rules. And that comes down to it affects diversity. It affects the way people deal with different races. It affects the acceptance of neurodivergence. It affects the person who's so uncomfortable by somebody fidgeting that they have to get them fired or whatever. That a lot of that comes down to a certain creating people's sense of safety to be themselves and to not enforce these things on themselves, and then to also not force them on each other. That the path to safety is acceptance. The path to safety is not like these rules and guardrails everywhere.
That is so, like, I love everything you just said. And the first thing I thought of is myself projecting things that I believe and things that I have oppressed onto others. You're absolutely right. So therefore, I'm never giving a coworker the opportunity to have a fresh start, a fresh, clean start. I've already have so many predispositions beforehand. Like, I know what you already think. I know what you're already going to say. I know, so I do that a lot. So thank you so much for that, Barbara. Candace, do you have any insight into the policy making and the advocates?
So, I mean, policy making, no, I don't. But from the advocacy perspective, I think that there's a term that they use in K through 12 education called SEL. It's social emotional learning. And I think that policymakers have to kind of have the same approach to their constituents that they serve, right? And the only reason why I have really kind of started to think about this a little bit more in depth is because I have a cousin that's based in New Orleans, Louisiana, and he had a spinal injury, and it changed his life. He is a paraplegic, and he was on a really fast, serious, career trajectory, and this spinal injury happened, and it changed his life. And from that moment on, he started not only to rebuild himself and learn how to, be a grown adult again, right? Learning how to live with this life-changing injury, but he started going to the policymakers and the lawmakers in the city of New Orleans. He opened a gym for people that have had spinal cord injuries. And what he does, because I know, it's like, I'm so proud of him. It's called the Split Second Foundation, if anybody, is interested. But what he does is something that is so amazing. And I think it's so brilliant. It's so humbling. He makes the policymakers in Louisiana get in a wheelchair and wheel around the city with him. So they see from his, right? I know. You know what I mean? From his point of view, they feel the cracks in the wall, in the streets, they feel the uncomfortable pavement. They feel the awkwardness. They feel all of those nuances of navigating the world as that, right? And that's how I think policymakers really need to approach constituents and to make real change. If they really care, I think they just need to spend a day in the life of.
Empathize, not sympathize. Yeah. We need sympathy, right? Empathy. Do you have any comments on this, Roberta?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for speaking up, because like I said, because I actually have a medical problem that led to me not being able to walk for a long time. I spent time in wheelchairs. I spent time with a walker, and I learned, boy, you don't want to be you don't want to be disabled in America because it sucks.
Right?
Bad.
I mean, really bad. And and you have all these laws and all these, it just.
Yep, that's something I want to talk about. Yeah. Well, I believe policymakers need to learn to accept us as in the neurodiverse community as well as the disabled community in the same way they want us to respect the other 97%. More money being implemented towards learning aids both in schools and on the job is a very important thing, but our lawmakers aren't paying attention. There should be more grants in the U.S. to further study how to best include us within the job market, given our massive rate of unemployment. It's such a waste of resources we bring to the table. We have a lot, as you talked about earlier. Every one of us has a lot to bring to the table. And we also need is greater action to ensure employers actually train the entire staff, including HR directors and civil rights directors, of the importance of actual diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've noticed in my time working that HR departments don't really bother to actually follow the rules. There are federal laws are put in place to protect us in employment, and they tend to fall into a well. Without any real federal oversight, which the government doesn't even bother to do. So that's a policy that needs to be changed. For example, EEOC rules and the ADA require equal access. Most employers summarily deny accommodation requests with a version of the old kangaroo court. Experienced it myself. They will deny requests in spite of the laws by claiming undue hardship, even when there is one. Happened to me. As for individuals, I think. Do you want to say something? Oh, okay.
Oh no, go ahead.
Okay. And as for individuals, I think we within the community of neurodiversity need to demand our voices be heard using tactful and tactical steps to be the change. A greater willingness to participate in studies to benefit our community is a good place to start. Coaching family members, friends, and employers on how to best serve our community. Ultimately, we have to be willing to run for government offices even, so we can create change from within the system. I mean, it has always been the best option that such folks as MLK, Malcolm, and even Jesse Jackson spoke
And
upon. Now, we can picket the streets, hold rallies, and provide all kinds of greater full community education. But until more of us are willing to step up into the limelight, the harsh cold light of day, nothing will likely change on its own. I know the one last big step is the last big step there is one that so many of the neurodiverse community is uncomfortable with, because a lot of us don't even like to have our pictures displayed like we're doing right now. But I am here walking through the fire to achieve a better day for the entire society, not just us.
I thank you for that. Thank you so much. You mentioned at the Roberta, at the end, you mentioned something. You have to forgive me because my neurodivergence, my ADHD, is really at a heightened pace right now. So I hear you and then I write it down, but I don't remember exactly what you said. So it was prior to your very last sentence that you were talking about being in the workplace.
Well, I said
you don't remember.
I said nothing will likely change on its own. I
Yeah.
know the last one is a big step, such as running for office, that so many of us of the neurodiversity community would not really feel comfortable doing. But
Right.
here I am right now trying to create change. And as I feel like I'm walking through the fire to achieve a better day for every member of society, not just the 97% or the 3%.
Awesome. What I wanted to say was, right now, when you say that we need to take a more leadership role as a whole, do we right now have any African American leaders per se, like a Malcolm X, like a MLK, like a Jesse? Do we have that? All I tend to see is my students idolizing sports heroes and music. Like, who else is there for them to idolize that is like, oh look, he looks like me and he is doing A, B, and C?
We don't have that. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad. It's very sad. I mean, but the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand that's happening, or look, maybe they understand, but they don't really grasp the full scope of what's happening in society, is that America is experiencing regression. And you know what? I'm sorry, people aren't going to like it. I don't care. But it has happened through the breakdown of education. It's happened through the breakdown of parenting and family structures. And not just in the Black community, but particularly in the Black community, what has happened to us in the last 60 years, right, has been so detrimental to not only future leaders, because we don't really have any, we don't have any uh, real academics anymore besides, I mean, Cornell West, of course. It's like, of course, we all, but and look, maybe Barbara, but I think that there has been a serious breakdown in the way that we hold ourselves in esteem. I think there's a breakdown in the way that we educate ourselves and the way that we see and interpret education in the Black community, because it's not cool to be smart, even though it's the coolest thing that you can ever do. Because I'll tell you, when you grow up, the smart Alex that were in class, the cute boys, the dope boys, all of the people that you thought were cool, those are not the cool people as you're an adult. and half of them aren't even cute anymore. Okay. So just,
it's the nerds, baby, the nerds.
It is the nerds. And I think because of that, and because, people started having kids younger, they stopped having like proper access to healthcare. There was just a total breakdown in our education, in our community leaders, in our churches. And this has been kind of the things that used to be the fabric and the crux of our community have totally collapsed. And yeah, and here we are looking around for someone to come tell us what to do and someone to come save us, right? And that's not happening. And we have to save ourselves. And I think that the first thing that we have to do is recognize that our parents and the people that were our community leaders are aging out, right? They're getting older, they're retiring, and someone has to take their place. And we have to start educating ourselves in a different way. We have to become more financially literate. We have to find ways to bridge the unemployment gap, because guess what? I'm unemployed. Roberta, you're unemployed, but I cannot tell you how many Black people and Black women in particular that I see with that little green open to work emblem on LinkedIn. LinkedIn does a real good job of giving you analytics that no one gives a damn about, but they do, but we need to really have a better perspective on how many African Americans are really gainfully employed in this country. Until we can answer that question, I don't really see any changes in leadership or in our communities happening.
I think you just said it all in a nutshell, Candace. I mean, honestly,
you certainly did.
Yeah, like that's exactly what is wrong in our communities. It is. Oh wow, we've been talking, y'all. But we've been talking good stuff. Okay. I would love to have you ladies back on again. Would you be interested? Okay, that is awesome. Okay, so I want to thank Candace, Barbara, and Roberta, all of you, for being here tonight. All the expertise, all the insight, all the personal experiences were dynamic. And once again, the WorkEND has done an amazing bomb diggity job of educating you about neurodivergent. I am Salena Gavin, and we're out.
Have a nice day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The WorkEND, a neurodiversity podcast, a monthly live panel discussion coming to you every second Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Central. If you or someone you know would like to be a panelist, be sure to let us know by filling out our Share Your Experience form at umbrellaus.org/take-action. If you're catching this live on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our channel for updates on this and other Umbrella US events. And finally, if you'd like to support the podcast, be sure to leave a rating and review and share with your friends. To donate to Umbrella US and learn all the latest from us, visit us at umbrellaus.org and follow on your favorite social media platform.